IB Biology Ecology Core Part 2 will focus on the carbon cycle. The essential idea is the continued availability of carbon in ecosystems depends on carbon cycling. Here's an outline of what's covered in the 4 movies of IB Bio Ecology Core. This movie is focused here, the carbon cycle. Light is the initial energy source for almost all ecosystems. Sunlight is continuous, but variable over a 24-hour period and through the year. Now, energy changes form as it moves into the system, through the system, and out of the system as heat. Nutrients, however, cycle within the system. The cycling of nutrients is displayed by the blue arrows in the diagram. This movie focuses on the cycling of carbon. Remember that the supply of nutrients in an ecosystem is finite and limited. Now, autotrophs transform carbon dioxide into carbohydrates and other carbon compounds. In aquatic ecosystems, carbon is present as dissolved carbon dioxide and hydrogen carbonate ions. Pay close attention as we move forward. The biogeochemical cycling of matter is very important to the well-being of organisms in an ecosystem. Living organisms take up nutrients, sulfur, phosphorus, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon, and hydrogen from the air, soil, and water. And through respiration, death, decomposition, and the excretion of wastes, organisms return nutrients to the environment. Living organisms can be fossilized. Partially decomposed organic matter from past geologic eras can be transformed into peat, coal, oil, and gas that accumulate in porous rocks. And fossil fuels are organic, and their combustion releases carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. Inorganic molecules can also be buried, pressed, and heated in a process known as sedimentation. The minerals present in rocks can be returned to the soil, air, and water through erosion. Here's the primary IB syllabus statement that is driving this movie. Construct a diagram of the carbon cycle to show the processes including photosynthesis, respiration, feeding, combustion, and fossilization. Show the following storagers or reservoirs of carbon: the autotrophs, the consumers, the decomposers, fossil fuels, and atmospheric CO2. Let's start with a schematic diagram of the carbon cycle. The advantage of this diagram is that the storages are clear. Atmospheric carbon dioxide is here, the carbon within autotrophs, the carbon within consumers, the carbon within decomposers, and the carbon within fossil fuels, all clearly displayed. The unit for the storages is in moles times 10 to the 15th moles. The flows are displayed as arrows with rate units times 10 to the 15th moles per year. Let's clarify the processes that would be identified by each arrow. Photosynthesis is here, the uptake of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere by autotrophs. Autotrophs respire. Consumers feed on autotrophs. This is a transfer of carbon. Consumers respire. Autotrophs and consumers die and decompose. Carbon is transferred to the decomposers. Decomposers also respire. Partially decomposed organic matter is transformed into coal, oil, and gas that accumulate in porous rocks. Fossil fuels are organic, and their combustion releases carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. Now, inorganic molecules can also be buried, pressed, and heated in a process known as sedimentation, and the minerals present in rocks can be returned to soil, air, and water through erosion. Here is a pictorial view of the carbon cycle. The disadvantage of a diagram like this is that storages, the stocks of carbon, are not rigorously defined, and as pictures they are easily overlooked. But for some of you, seeing the cycling of carbon in pictures helps you see the process more clearly. Let's define the flows, the processes identified by each arrow. Photosynthesis is the uptake of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Feeding, here and here, is movement of carbon along the food chain. This is death and decomposition, and here we have a storage of carbon in the detritivores and the decomposers. All organisms respire, the decomposers, the plants, and the consumers. On the left, we have the combustion of fossil fuels releasing CO2 to the atmosphere from the organic fossil fuels that have been accumulated and mined from deep below the Earth's surface. Here is a very simplified diagram of carbon cycling. The arrows display fluxes, transfers of carbon. Get to know the term flux. The thickness of the arrow indicates the size or the magnitude of the flux. The boxes display storages. Spend some time studying this image. Here's a more finely detailed IB syllabus statement, but it's not that difficult. Explain the cycling of carbon dioxide in and out of aquatic ecosystems and within aquatic ecosystems. Carbon dioxide dissolves in water to become carbonic acid, which dissociates into hydrogen ions and the hydrogen carbonate ion. In aquatic ecosystems, carbon is present as dissolved carbon dioxide and hydrogen carbonate ions. In aquatic ecosystem, carbon dioxide diffuses from the atmosphere into the water. In water, the carbon dioxide combines with the H2O to form carbonic acid, which dissociates into hydrogen carbonate and hydrogen ions. Autotrophs in the water will take up either carbon dioxide or the hydrogen carbonate for the purposes of photosynthesis. All aquatic organisms respire, releasing carbon dioxide back into the water column, where, depending on the carbon dioxide concentration, this might be released to the atmosphere by diffusion. Now, carbon, in the form of calcium carbonate shells of mollusks and corals, will be deposited on the floor of aquatic systems, ocean or lake, and the calcium carbonate will be buried, pressed, and heated to become limestone. Autotrophs on land pick up carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Autotrophs in the water pick up CO2 from the water in the form of carbon dioxide or hydrogen carbonate. Carbon dioxide produced by respiration diffuses out of organisms into the water and back into the atmosphere. So remember, in aquatic ecosystems, carbon is present as dissolved carbon dioxide or hydrogen carbonate ions. CO2 from the air will dissolve and combine with water to form carbonic acid, which dissociates into hydrogen carbonate ions and some hydrogen ions. In this diagram, we can take a serious look at the magnitude of fluxes and storages to analyze net change in atmospheric carbon dioxide. The fluxes are in billions of metric tons per year or gigatons per year. The storages or stocks are in billions of metric tons. Storages are quantities, not rates. The fluxes displaying carbon dioxide removed from the atmosphere are in blue, while the fluxes displaying carbon dioxide into the atmosphere are in red. With sums of all the atmospheric inputs and outputs, we can assess whether atmospheric carbon dioxide levels are in equilibrium or not. In this diagram, 203 gigatons per year of carbon dioxide are removed from the atmosphere by land and ocean processes, while 208 gigatons per year are put into the atmosphere. The atmosphere carbon dioxide levels are increasing by approximately 5 gigatons per year, mostly because of the combustion of fossil fuels, but also because of changing land use patterns, specifically deforestation. This diagram also displays the imbalance of atmospheric carbon dioxide inputs and outputs, and suggests that the imbalance is even larger than the diagram on the last slide. Now calculate the sums for yourself or follow along with me. The carbon dioxide input into the atmosphere in red is 224 gigatons per year, while the output from the atmosphere in green is 204 gigatons per year, 20 gigatons of CO2 per year being added to the atmosphere. Atmospheric CO2 levels are not in equilibrium. This diagram, like the last one, also suggests that fossil fuel combustion, as well as changing land use patterns, deforestation, are responsible for the increase in carbon dioxide levels. Here are two IB syllabus statements that emphasize the importance of a close analysis of the rates of the fluxes. Estimate the fluxes due to processes in the carbon cycle. Carbon fluxes should be measured in gigatons. So let's look closely at the numbers with a focus on the atmospheric stock of carbon dioxide. The ocean atmosphere numbers display a net loss of CO2 from the atmosphere. The land atmosphere numbers also display a net loss from the atmosphere. But with land use patterns changing and fossil fuel combustion, there is a net gain by the atmosphere. This is a nice image to study. The storages are labeled in blue and the fluxes are in red. Again, notice the comparable values for photosynthesis and respiration, 120 gigatons per year each. Notice the comparable values for the exchange with the ocean, 90 and 92 gigatons per year respectively, with a small net loss of CO2 from the atmosphere to the ocean. But with land use patterns changing and fossil fuel combustion, the atmosphere has a net gain of carbon dioxide. Notice the largest storage of carbon is in the Earth's crust. This would be mostly sediments of calcium carbonate. Notice the fossil fuel storage here. This is a graph that shows the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere over the last 50 years, with a general increase in the concentration of carbon dioxide over that time period. This data is well documented by monitoring stations in Hawaii and Australia. Scientists do not dispute this data. The yearly fluctuations that you see here relates to changing seasons in the northern hemisphere. The high value in one year is caused during the winter in the northern hemisphere when little photosynthesis occurs. The lower values in a given year are during the summers in the northern hemisphere as plants actively take up carbon dioxide due to photosynthesis. But the overall trend is an increase in carbon dioxide over time, and this is due to fossil fuel combustion and deforestation. Keep in mind that there are climate change skeptics that think humans are not responsible for the increase in atmospheric carbon dioxide levels seen here. The increase in carbon dioxide, a greenhouse gas in the atmosphere, is the primary greenhouse gas driving climate change. Here's another look at the carbon cycle. Notice the similarity between the numbers here and numbers that you've seen in the previous slides. You can calculate the net change of atmospheric carbon dioxide. Stop the movie now to do so. There is a gain of 6.5 gigatons per year of atmospheric carbon dioxide. With this slide, let me transition to a new IB syllabus statement by emphasizing another aspect of the diagram. Carbon in the form of calcium carbonate shells of mollusks and corals will be deposited on the floor of aquatic systems, ocean or lake. The calcium carbonate will be buried, pressed, and heated to become limestone, here labeled as carbonate rocks. Here's the IB syllabus statement. Describe in detail the sedimentary portion of the carbon cycle. As a section of your response, explain the formation of fossil fuels and peat. You need to be able to address the origin of coal, oil, and gas separately, as all three are fossil fuel. In this image of the carbon cycle, notice that none of the storages or fluxes are quantified. This is a limitation of the diagram. But what I liked about the image was the way in which the sedimentary portion of the carbon cycle was displayed. The diagram nicely displays the marine deposits of mollusk shell and coral, as well as the limestone and organic fossil fuels of coal, oil, and natural gas. The other important organic storage of carbon not shown here is peat. Pay close attention because I'll be covering peat formation first, then coal, then oil, then gas. The formation of coal, oil, and peat occurs when dead organic matter is buried, pressed, and heated in a process called fossilization. Peat formation is the first step in the formation of coal. In this diagram, which has time along the x-axis, living material dies and becomes buried, then partially decomposed organic matter is further buried and pressed into peat. Peat typically forms in wetland conditions where flooding obstructs the flow of oxygen from the atmosphere, slowing rates of decomposition. You can see the lush growth here at time 1, the death and partial decomposition of the organic matter, along with burial and pressure in anaerobic conditions, results in peat formation. This is the first step toward the formation of coal. The peatland ecosystem is a very important carbon sink, a very important carbon storage system. Here is a photograph of a peat bog where peat forms. Bogs with peat occur when organic matter is not fully decomposed because of acidic and/or anaerobic conditions in waterlogged soil. The peatland ecosystem is the most efficient carbon sink on the planet because carbon is trapped rather than released, as would occur if the organic matter fully decomposed. The rich organic nature of peat is evident in the foreground with this dark carbon-rich peat seen here. Peat is a rich source of combustible material used as a fuel. Peat takes thousands of years to form, thus is considered non-renewable, in the same way that coal, oil, or natural gas would be non-renewable. In this photograph, you can see peat being harvested. Peat is used as a combustible material for home heating in latitudes with cold winters. And as a carbon storage, the combustion of peat results in a net gain of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. An additional concern with the harvest and combustion of peat is the release of methane to the environment. Methane is a greenhouse gas. The anaerobic conditions that produce peat also produces methane. As well, the cold temperatures of tundra habitat encourage slow decomposition, thus the formation of peat and methane. Cold latitude habitats are perfect conditions for peat formation. Thus, peat can be found in the tundra, often trapped beneath the permafrost. Along with the peat, methane is also trapped beneath the permafrost. So, if the permafrost melts due to climate change, methane may be released to the atmosphere, and methane is a greenhouse gas. Here is the relevant IB syllabus statement. Explain the formation of peat and include the formation of methane in your response. This diagram focuses on the methane cycle. The release of methane occurs as a part of peat formation, seen here. And if the permafrost melts due to climate change, the methane trapped beneath the permafrost will be released to the atmosphere, as can be seen here. Coal formation occurs if the buried, partially decomposed organic matter is given more time under pressure and heat. In other words, peat first, then coal. In this diagram, time runs along the x-axis, and with time, millions and millions of years, under pressure and increased temperatures, partially decomposed organic matter becomes coal. Again, under anaerobic conditions, wet conditions, with time, pressure, heat, the organic matter becomes coal, a fossil fuel. In this diagram of the carbon cycle, fossil fuel formation occurs as a part of this flow, slow over millions and millions of years of time. Coal, oil, and natural gas are fossil fuels, organic matter. Humans harvest those fossil fuels, then combust them for energy. The combustion of fossil fuels releases carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. This diagram nicely displays the fossil fuel storage part of the sedimentary portion of the carbon cycle. The harvest and combustion of fossil fuels results in a net increase of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. While coal and peat result from the burial of terrestrial plant material, oil formation occurs from the burial of marine plankton species. In either case, formerly living organisms that are buried, pressed, and heated provide the fundamental source of fossil fuels. In this diagram, we see the coal, oil, and gas storage here, a storage of organic carbon that has formed from formerly living material that was buried, pressed, and heated into fossil fuel. As well, we can see carbon storage in the form of limestone here. Limestone results from the calcium carbonate that comprises mollusk shells and corals. Limestone forms when corals and the shells of mollusks are buried, pressed, and heated. In this photograph of calcium carbonate, you can see the presence of shells. The animals we call corals grow just beneath the surface by manufacturing their homes from calcium carbonate. Corals form calcium carbonate by joining calcium ions with hydrogen carbonate available from the water. Coral reefs, such as this one, are formed by small animals that build a hard enclosure that we know of as the coral or the reef. Coral and the shells of mollusks will be buried at depth to form limestone. Here is a photograph of limestone that formed beneath an ocean but was later uplifted and exposed to be seen here. As the concentration of atmospheric carbon dioxide increases, carbon dioxide dissolves in the ocean in greater quantities as well. As the concentration of carbon dioxide in the ocean increases, the pH decreases. In other words, as the concentration of oceanic carbon dioxide increases, the world's oceans become more acidic. Here's a bit of the chemistry. As oceanic carbon dioxide levels increase, hydrogen ions are released into the water. Calcium carbonate in the presence of hydrogen ions results in the dissolving of the calcium carbonate. Thus, the risk of increased levels of atmospheric CO2 is a more acidic ocean. A more acidic ocean results in the death of corals. Here is the last IB syllabus statement of this movie, and it's relatively obvious. State that carbon dioxide is produced by the combustion of biomass and fossilized organic matter, in other words, coal, oil, and gas. Carbon dioxide is produced by the combustion of biomass and the combustion of fossilized organic matter, coal, oil, and natural gas. The combustion of biomass would include wood, dung, or peat. Keep this in mind. Carbon dioxide is produced by the combustion of biomass, wood, dung, or peat. You should be able to identify all of the fluxes identified by number and all of the storages identified by letter. Storage D is fossil fuel, while flux 1 is combustion. I'll leave the rest for you to study or ask about in class. In this diagram of the carbon cycle, I've identified all of the fluxes by the first letter of the process. This P is photosynthesis, the R is respiration. I'll let you identify the other letters. Study this slide and ask questions in class if you're not sure. Identify all the numbered fluxes shown in this diagram. Study this slide. See me in class if you have any questions. In this diagram of the carbon cycle, the fluxes are given in moles per year. Can you determine whether or not atmospheric carbon dioxide is in equilibrium or out of equilibrium? Can you determine why atmospheric carbon dioxide is not in equilibrium? See me in class if you're struggling with the questions I've posed here. And that brings us to the end of IB Biology Core Part 2.